Welcome back. So here we are going to learn how to write a function. It's very simple. So we want to write a function max length which will work on any string sequence, you see, any list basically, or even a tuple of strings. Okay. So how do we write it? It said, how do you define a function? You simply say def for define. Def, name of your function and what you want to put inside. This is called parameter. In our case, string sequence, colon, and body of your function. A function has to have a return, mind you. If you don't give it a return, what comes back is called none object. Okay? So unless you want to give it a none object, you will have to return something. Okay? Long so far. What does that even mean? Look, suppose you want to find the longest here. Long so far, to begin with, the longest is empty. Then you compare it with the first one. Is the first one longer than an empty string? Yes, it is. So long so far becomes the first one. Then you compare long so far, which is this guy, with the second one. Is this longer than long so far? No. In this particular example, no. So long so far continues to be carbonated water. And then you check with the third guy. So you see, this is where you need a for loop. You are comparing with the third one. Then you compare it with this guy. Then you compare it with this guy. This looks longer, right? So long so far gets updated by the longer one the moment you see it. That's the idea. So long so far to begin with is empty. Then go through your string sequence, be it a list or a tuple. If the length of the entry is bigger than the length of your present long so far, then update long so far with the longer entry, the one you got. If it is not, then you skip that if and keep checking. All right. And once you finish your for loop, that means you have checked with the last entry of your sequence. You're out of the for loop and you return whatever has been long so far. Okay. So let's type this in. I don't want any more example while, so I'll get rid of that. And I will create a new file, and this will be function examples, right? So the file name is going to be example function.py. Okay. So the first code is this: define max length. It has one parameter, string sequence. Long so far is empty string. So far, empty string is the longest. For entry in string sequence, you see your spelling should be accurate. Okay, so you're going through that list or tuple. If length of the entry is greater than length of whatever is long so far, colon, then update long so far to be the entry. Otherwise, ignore it. Okay. So once I'm done with the for loop, that is, I've tested every one of these. I want to be aligned with the for loop. I'm done. Return long so far. Okay. You do this. So this is my example. Oh, I don't want it in documents. I want it in my Dropbox. Teaching, new CSI 31 lectures. We are on lecture 6. Okay, example while, yeah, in that same folder. Okay, so we have saved it. Now let's run it. Okay, nothing happened. Why? Let me see max length. What is max length? It's telling me it's a function and it is saved in this particular memory location. Okay, so all we know is that there is a function like that. Okay, now that we have saved a nice function, let's play with it. I want to apply max length to this particular ingredients. Well, that is too much, right? Isn't it too big? Well, let's I mean, these names are fine, but let's see. Let me say names equals, right? John, Jane, Jen, Rob, Tolstoy. Okay, by just looking at it, you know Tolstoy is going to be the longest. Let's see maximum length of names. It is Tolstoy. It returned me the longest. Okay, because it returns the longest. Is this clear? So notice the syntax for defining functions. We start with define, the name of your function, parenthesis parameters. There is, in our case, there is only one parameter, a list or a tuple of strings. This function has to return something, in our case, the entry with the maximum length. If the definition of function does not have a return statement, then it returns an object called none. Okay? So, you have ingredients, which is a list that replaces string statement, string sequence. Okay? And when you find your concern, that becomes your long so far. Parameters, string sequence, the one that you used for the definition of your function, it is formal parameter. Ingredients is the actual parameter. We used names. You see, actual parameter went in. So the actual parameter replaces the formal parameter. That's the idea. Okay? Sometimes a function does not take any parameters, and that's okay. In that case, we use empty parentheses in the definition and calling of the said function. Okay? Sometimes a function has no parameters, so you use empty parentheses. So when you call the function or you invoke the function, you don't put anything because it's empty. Each time a function is called, the system assigns identifier, and we chose a formal parameter to the, and we choose as a formal parameter to the actual parameter indicated by the caller. Body of the function is indented after the definition. See, here is the definition sentence, ends with a colon, and the body is all indented, including the return. Don't forget, return should be inside the definition. All right. Now, the identifier long so far, okay, it has local scope. It is defined here only in the definition. If I go outside the function, say this is outside, right? I'm here at the compile interpreter. If I ask for long so far, what is it? It doesn't even know who it is, who long so far is. Why? Because long so far is part of the function. It's like it's inside this home. It cannot be seen outside. Okay? That's what it means to say local scope. All right. Um, Local scope. All right. So it cannot be directly accessed by any block of code other than the body of the function. It is created solely for our use in the processing of the current function call. In other words, if we have another long so far outside the definition of the function max length, then the two variables do not interfere. So you could have one function here, another function here, another long so far in the next function. This guy doesn't know this guy. This guy doesn't know this guy. So they are in different homes. They cannot see. So they have very much local presence. That's what it means. Okay. Return value. The function body ends with return long so far. Although the local identifier long so far will cease to exist as the function ends, the underlying object will be available to the caller. So this return means whatever was the longest so far got sent back to the caller, whereas the variable long so far simply is cleaned up here. It doesn't come out. Variable doesn't come out, but the value is sent out. Okay. Sometimes the return command is executed elsewhere within the body of the function. Okay. Sometimes return, you could have returned inside an if statement, for example, and that's okay. Anytime execution of the function immediately ends with any specified value passed back. The moment your function invokes or executes the return sentence, the function stops. It ends its job. Sometimes we may use a return statement without any subsequent value. In this case, the execution of the function without returning any formal value, special value none object is returned. So suppose I said simply return, nothing here, it's not wrong, only none objects comes out. Okay, you don't get anything else. All right. For example, sometimes you may simply print things rather than returning anything. Okay, you will see in a few minutes an example. Flow of control. Calling a function is a form of control statement. Parameters are sent to the function, and the moment the caller invokes the function, the control is passed to the body of the function. Some function calls may take more times to complete than others. Sometimes a function may get stuck in an infinite loop. The control returns to the caller after the function is completed. Okay. So for instance, here when you had a code, somewhere you said concern equals max length. Max length is a function. At this point, you go to the function max length and go through its body until the return, and then come back to the line after this line. Okay, that's the flow of control. More generally, we can nest function calls just as we nest other control calls. Okay, so suppose what this means is if I want to write a song has a chorus. Well, chorus is its own small function. I can write that down. Okay. So here is another example. So I'll save this for now. I'll use the same file. Okay. And let's start writing a song. Okay. We'll write the song Happy Birthday to You several in our next video. Okay. You will see what I mean. It's a simple exercise. Until then.